In the wake of the DeMarcus Cousins trade, I thought it would be pretty interesting to take a look at some other NBA superstars who were traded while they were still in their primes. Before the trade, Cousins was averaging a solid 27 points and 11 rebounds per game for the Sacramento Kings. And believe it or not, there have been other NBA players who were even better than Boogie at the time they were traded. Now before I get into this video, there are way more than 10 stars who were traded in their primes, but unfortunately, I only have time for 10. So with that being said, if you enjoy NBA and basketball content, I encourage you guys to hit that subscribe button and also smash that like button. Let's try to hit 100 likes on this video. That would be amazing, but let's get into it. Number 10, Bob McAdoo. McAdoo was the NBA's best scorer for 3 consecutive seasons entering the fall of 1976. And that same year, some drama went down between McAdoo and the Buffalo Braves, and they decided to deal him to the New York Knicks. The 25-year-old was sent to the Knicks with Tom McMillan for John Gianelli and some cash. As a result, Bob McAdoo went on to join Spencer Haywood and Earl Monroe on the New York Knicks, and the results were pretty underwhelming. He would only average 24.1 points a game for the next 2 years with the Knicks, and it seemed like chemistry was a bit off. In 1979, McAdoo was traded to the Celtics and ended up finishing his career playing for not only the Pistons, but also the Nets, the Lakers, and the 76ers before he made his way to the Hall of Fame. Number 9, Chris Paul. The New Orleans Hornets, now the Pelicans, had a lot of success with Chris Paul during his time there. But eventually, he was becoming unhappy with the franchise, and they decided to deal Chris Paul. Remarkably, the Hornets' lack of an ownership played a huge role in this trade. As we all may know, the Lakers made the first move on Chris Paul and came to an agreement on a 3-team trade that would send Pau Gasol away from the Lakers. Instead, the NBA decided to veto the trade, and Paul was later traded to the Clippers just 1 week later. Now this was an absolutely huge trade as Chris Paul went to the Clippers, and the Clippers received a huge bundle of players including Eric Gordon and Al-Farouq Aminu. As time has gone on, Paul has remained an elite tier point guard for the Clippers, but his team has never made the Western Conference Finals despite him having Blake Griffin, all-star power forward, and DeAndre Jordan, all-star center. The Hornets meanwhile suffered a year of poor play but landed the number 1 pick just 1 year after trading Chris Paul and drafted Anthony Davis. And as for the Lakers, they haven't had too much success since the Chris Paul ordeal. Number 8, Oscar Robertson. In 1970, Bob Cousy was considered by many the greatest point guard in NBA history. But there was this man named Oscar Robertson from the Cincinnati Royals that was slowly rising up the ranks. Coincidentally, Bob Cousy was coaching Oscar Robertson in Cincinnati, and they had some arguments. In fact, these arguments had gotten so bad, Oscar Robertson was fed up with the team. He was eventually traded to the Milwaukee Bucks for Flynn Robinson and Charlie Polk. Robertson at the time was 31 years old, but still considered a top 10 player in the league. And of course, the 1970-1971 Milwaukee Bucks were one of the greatest teams in NBA history. Robertson, paired with Lou Alcindor, who you guys may know as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, went on to win 66 regular season games and an NBA championship, the only one of Robertson's career. He would spend his last 4 years of his career there averaging a solid 16 points and 7 assists a game. Number 7, Kevin Garnett. Garnett's Timberwolves hadn't made the playoffs in 3 years, and the roster was pretty bad. In 2007, he was 3 years removed from an MVP season, but was still widely considered as one of the top 3 players in the league. But whenever trade rumors came up, he hesitated on leaving Minnesota. He had such a huge affection for the team, it was tough for him to go anywhere. But after the Celtics had acquired Ray Allen in addition to Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett was traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves in probably one of the biggest trades in NBA history. Garnett would go on to win an NBA championship in his first year with the Boston Celtics and made 2 finals appearances during his time there. And it made the entire basketball world notice that how good Garnett was when he was on a winning team. This Boston team was really the first time in his career where he could go deep in the playoffs. But as far as the historical implications go on this trade was by far one of the biggest trades ever. Number 6, Charles Barkley. The Sixers' lack of playoff success frustrated Barkley. He had joined a team with Julius Irving and Moses Malone, but found himself in the 1990s pretty much alone. So he decided that he wanted to be traded, and he nearly went to the post-Magic Johnson Lakers. Instead, the Sixers took a package of Jeff Hornacek, Andrew Lang, and Tim Perry, which is really not a bad deal considering Hornacek's remarkable efficiency. As a result, the Suns made the NBA Finals in their first year with Barkley and gave the Bulls a good run as any team had during the 1990s. But as we all know, Michael Jordan would go on to win this championship along with 5 others to be a 6-time NBA champion. But after their great season making the NBA Finals, the Suns really never made it back deep in the playoffs, and in fact they never made it back to the finals, and Barkley was traded to the Rockets in 1996. Number 5, Moses Malone. Malone played for 9 pro basketball franchises throughout his career, but really only played for 2 while he was in his prime. Malone had won the MVP award in the 1978-1979 NBA season, and again in 1981-1982. Then, in 1982, he made his way to the Philadelphia 76ers to team up with Julius Irving. The Sixers had to give up Caldwell Jones and a future first-round pick, but it was a pretty good deal. The Sixers would go on to win the NBA championship in 1983 with one of the greatest teams in NBA history, losing only once in the postseason. Malone played for the Sixers for 4 years, ushering in the Charles Barkley era for the franchise, and had the team stayed healthy, they surely would have won another championship. Number 4, Julius Irving. In 1976, the Nets were, well, let's face it, broke. They were faced with some hefty fees from the NBA, and they were in need of some money. And that's what led to the Julius Irving trade of 1976. They sent the best player in the ABA away for money. That's it. Irving made his way to the 76ers, and he ended up making the finals in his first NBA season with the team. They would go on to lose to Bill Walton and the Portland Trail Blazers, but they were a good team for pretty much his entire tenure with the 76ers. They suffered some heartbreaking playoff losses towards the beginning of his tenure, but they would go on to win an NBA championship with Moses Malone in 1983. Irving would finish his career in the NBA playing 11 seasons and would go down as one of the greatest ever. Number 3, Shaquille O'Neal. Now, Shaq was traded a few times in his career, and he also left the Magic for the Lakers back in the 90s. But in 2004, Shaquille O'Neal was dealt to the Miami Heat in a deal that included players like Lamar Odom and Caron Butler. There's a lot of speculation around the trade, but I think it's pretty safe to say that this trade had to do with the drama between Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. And once Shaq arrived in Miami, things began to look good. He would go on to win his 4th and eventually last NBA title with the Miami Heat, and they ended up winning it in his 2nd season there. And he would go on to win it with future NBA Hall of Famer Dwayne Wade in just his 2nd season there. And before it was all said and done, Shaq would go on to play with the Suns, the Cavaliers, and the Celtics to wind down his NBA career. Number 2, Wilt Chamberlain. Now, Wilt was traded twice in his career. He was traded from the Lakers to the Sixers towards the end of his prime, but before that, he was traded from the Warriors to the 76ers the season after he had dropped 100 points in a game. The Warriors moved Chamberlain to the 76ers, and the deal really didn't make a lot of sense. At the time, he was considered a top 2 player in the NBA, averaging 34 points and 22 rebounds a game literally every single season. And similar to the Julius Irving situation, the Warriors were in some financial trouble, and it kind of led to this trade. Now, even though the Warriors should have received a lot more for the best player in the game at the time, they did receive Connie Durking, Paul Newman, Lee Schaffer, and some cash to make up for their financial troubles. Once Chamberlain arrived in Philadelphia, he would issue some of the greatest seasons in NBA history. In 1967, they went 68-13 and beat his former team, the Golden State Warriors, then the San Francisco Warriors, in the NBA Finals. He kept up this pace for 3.5 years until he was traded to the LA Lakers in 1968. Number 1, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. In 1975, the 3-time NBA MVP and probably the best player in the game at the time wanted to play for a bigger market. It was pretty much that simple. He had won a championship in Milwaukee, and he was growing unhappy with the team day by day. He wanted to play for either New York or LA, and LA came up with a great deal who at the time was rebuilding their roster. They decided to send Junior Bridgman, Dave Myers, Elmore Smith, and Brian Winters to the Milwaukee Bucks in exchange for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Now at the time, Jerry West had retired 2 years before Abdul-Jabbar had joined the Lakers, and he found himself on a pretty weak team. They missed the postseason in year 1, and they weren't really that impressive for the coming years. But, as we all know, in 1979, one of the greatest point guards in NBA history joined the roster. And if you don't know what I'm talking about Magic Johnson. For the next 10 years, Johnson and Abdul-Jabbar were probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest duo the league has ever seen, and they would go on to win 5 NBA titles while reaching 4 more NBA finals. So that is going to do it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's pretty crazy to see some of these NBA superstars that were traded while they were in their primes, but like in Julius Irving's situation, the Nets were in some pretty bad financial trouble and nothing else could really be done. Now let me know what your list would be in the comment section down below. But that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'm out. Peace.
One thing about music, when it hits you, feel